Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Changing the Narrative podcast. I'm your co-host, Dr. Gabriel Warren, along with Carl Benson. And today we are excited to have Todd Western here with us, who I'm looking forward to this because you have some pretty cool stories that I'm sure you're going to tell us. So Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, could you start just by letting the listeners know a little bit about, who you are, what do you do, some of the things you do when you're working, and then maybe some of the things you do when you're not working?
Well, I'm Todd Western III, and yes, there is Todd Western V. He's 2 years old, and so I'm pretty happy about that. I remember in high school, I used to think, what if I could get up to Todd the 16th? So I come from a long line of Todds, and originally from Waterloo, Iowa. I moved up here after graduating from the University of Iowa, which beat the University of Minnesota yesterday. And so even though my Cowboys lost today, just want to let you know that Iowa did win. So the weekend is not lost. Came up from 1989 from the University of Iowa and been up here ever since, and been working the corporate world the last 28 years before I transitioned to a nonprofit.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the nonprofit you work for?
So I work for the Greater Twin Cities United Way, located in downtown Minneapolis. Greater Twin Cities serves a 9 metro area, metro area, and it's been quite the journey.
Right. So besides your work at the United Way, you and your family own and operate Western Family Farms, right? So tell us more about that, and tell us a little bit, not only the history of your farm, but how you're still making that happen for a Black farmer today.
Well, I'm like any other farmer kid. You assume that you're going to farm, when dad retires, and you'll be about 40 or 50 and you'll go back and help dad. That was always an envision. But it did not work out that way. I would go back and help my dad on the weekends. It's a 3.5-hour drive. And 2008, life changed for my family dramatically. But prior to that, just leading up to that, our family farm was established in 1864. They bought their way out of slavery and traveled to Iowa. And they just, as luck would have it, and by the grace of God, they landed in a state that was friendly towards Blacks migrating from the South. They established that farm, and it was 160 acres in New Sharon, Iowa. And so when I picked up the story, my grandfather, my aunts, they were the 4th generation, and they were doing very well. They went to college, they worked the farm. And so after my father got out of the military, he went to Waterloo, met my mom, they got married. At that time, just like any other family, he settled in Waterloo, and he began working at John Deere. He became the first Black supervisor at John Deere in 1968, amidst the racial tension in Iowa at that time. So became the first Black supervisor at John Deere. All the while, my grandfather was farming the farm from in New Sharon, Iowa. My father would go back and help him. Then in 1974, my grandfather passed away from cancer, and then my father took that farm over. Meanwhile, he'd also bought another farm in Waterloo, which is 2 hours away. So we would farm the farm back and forth, and life is great. I would go back and help him with that. And, he did that for about 8 years. And then we had to rent one out because the semi cost got to be a little bit much. And so, my father, my mother and father, they're like, they're pioneers in their own right. My mom was the first Black cheerleader at Proviso East in Chicago, Illinois, actually Maywood, Illinois. And my father's first Black supervisor. So when he didn't farm that other farm, he just farmed the 50 acres in Waterloo. He began to run Chicago Marathon. So every year, Chicago Marathon, he would run that in October. And then what would happen is he'd work his day job during the day. He'd work the farm at night, take care of his 3 kids, and then he would run the Chicago Marathon. My mom, meanwhile, she also sang opera. So we would either be in farm clothes, church clothes, or in opera clothes at any one time. So it was a unique background growing up. And I say all that to lead up to, life is great. We're feeling blessed. I'm up in Minneapolis. My other brother's in Minneapolis. My son is doing well in his career. And in 2008, my father, like usual, went to work, and he comes home. he takes care of the family, and then he goes like he would always do at about 9 to 10 o'clock at night and go run and train for the marathon. This was in July. And then unfortunately, my mom wakes up about 2 in the morning and my dad is not there. And so it's a frantic search for him. And then unfortunately we found out that he had a bicycle accident on the way to the track. And the odd thing, and I think one of the more horrific things, is that it was like literally 6 blocks from the house. And so he passed away in 2008, July of 2008, which was 9 months from his retirement and 1 week from his birthday, 65th birthday. And so that's when I entered the farm world full time. Just like any family, when one family member goes down, the other ones step in. And so from 2008 to 2015, we farmed the farm. I would go back and forth to Waterloo, me and my son and my brother, and we would farm the farm just like Dad did it. And that was our life. And you know, it sent a big ripple through our family. And so that's really how it got there. And then what happened was, because I am in sales, I also believe in telling, you got to tell your story about what you do. And so I started doing it like similar to what I'm doing with you guys. And then I didn't realize, as a farmer, you're isolated anyway, but as a Black farmer, you're even more isolated. So I didn't realize the value of being a farmer, especially being a Black farmer. That's when my son, Todd IV, sent me all these videos, let me know about, hey, Dad, did you know that the plight of the Black farmer is this? And I did not know that, because in my dad's era and preceding my dad's era, you didn't talk about farming. It was not cool to talk about it. And if you're doing well, you didn't want the white man to know about it. If you're doing bad, you didn't want your friends to know about it. So we grew up, it was always hush hush on the farming. And so when I learned about the plight of the Black farmer, that's when I said, you know what, I need to tell this story, because we traveled from Virginia out of slavery, settled in 1864, and is still here with us today. That needs to be told. Plus, in 1944, 13% of the farmers were Black. Today, there's less than 1.4%. And we are part of that 1.4%. And I would venture to guess that 1% of that are farmers from down south, and the other small portion are from up north. So I just had to tell our story, and which has got me here.
I mean, you kind of, already hit this question a little bit, but in case you wanted to expound on it a little bit more, how important is it for you, as a Black man, to be in the career field you're in, both as like a senior donor advisor, but then also as a Black farmer?
Well, the good news is that, I came out of the corporate world, which, as we all know, is cutthroat and not a lot of care and feeling there. Once I came to United Way, specifically United Way, they're a very caring organization. They care about the employees. And so it was at a perfect time in my life with what was going on to get into an organization that slowed down a little bit, took in account an inventory of people's feelings in and outside of the organization, and also in the community. And so working United Way, our whole goal is to help those that are less fortunate, help those to get on their feet. And also, there's a food component. We have our food security program, which helps individuals with food, which helps communities get culturally specific food for the food shelves. And so we work with organizations like Urban Roots out of St. Paul. And so that also goes hand in hand with what I'm doing, and the mission does. And so, the importance of the Black farmer, the other part of your question is, farming is farming, but it becomes important when you know the history of why we are such a minority in the farming community. And so therefore, the importance of being a Black farmer is just representing my family, being good stewards of the land, and trying to uplift and the farmers.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think you probably touched on this, but and just for clarification, what motivates you to get up? Because I mean, you're clearly burning the candle at both ends at some parts of the year, right? So what motivates you every day to get up, do everything you do, still get back on the farm and do everything you do there? How do you stay motivated?
Again, like I get back to my parents. I mean, literally from dusk till dawn, dawn to dusk, we were always doing something. Like I said, we would either be in Chicago with my dad for the marathon, we'd be in New York for my mom singing opera, we'd be on the farm, we'd be at school. I was in band and football. We're always moving. We never let grass grow under our feet. My father's biggest saying, never let grass grow under your feet. And so, and so it was instilled in us that you take advantage of every minute of the day, which is why today, I work at United Way full time. I assistant football coach at Park Center. I do the farming. I raise my family. I'm on several boards, and then I give back, try to with the 100 Black Men of America, trying to mentor young youth. And so what motivates me is my parents. The other thing is I see the value now that I'm on this side of 50, and the tragedy that I went through with my father going away, knowing that life is so fragile. I mean, if you think about it, he was literally 9 months from retirement and 1 week from his birthday. So that really hit me hard to say life is very valuable. And so I don't try to waste any part of the day without being curious, inquisitive, challenging, helpful, because life is fragile and you never know. And if you knew my dad, the reason why it's so impactful, he was like a giant. Like if his biggest thing, if it ain't hurting, it ain't working, right? So there was no pain in his life. He went, to the wall every day, and he was such a big figure in our life that for him to go in such a silly way, like we always say, okay, he was either going to die in a farm accident or a John Deere accident, not on a silly bicycle. So if he can go that easy and that prematurely, then it just made me value life even more.
Wow. Man, that's an amazing story. So now, in what ways do you believe like the portrayals of Black masculinity in the media contribute to the misconception that, Black men are to be feared or Black men lack self-control? Clearly, you had a good example with your father, but that's not the types of people we see when the media portrays Black men. So what's your perspective on that?
I would get a headache if I tried to really get into the psychology. We all know the psychology of it, but I can only affect the area around me and the people around me. So I try to be the biggest example I can for not only Blacks, but whites, Hispanic, Asians, to let them know that, at the end of the day, I'm a human being. I'm just trying to do good, and I happen to be Black. And because you do notice my color, which most people do, I always notice your color, let that be a reminder that there's a lot of good Black, white, Asian, Mexicans. There's all good people, right? There's always a small percentage that are the bad apples, but for the most part, everybody's a good person. And I try to do that representation. So, with the media, I think we've made some strides in improving that. We're obviously not all the way there yet, but we're making strides in improving that. So at the end of the day, I just control what I can control and in my immediate area, and try to be an example to everyone around me.
Yeah. So if you had to write your mission statement, your life mission statement right now, and of course we gave this question a little earlier, but what would that be? What would be your mission statement for Todd Western?
Wow, that's a big one. What is your mission statement in one sentence?
I'll give you 2 sentences.
My mission is to live a life rooted in faith, dedicated to family and friends, at the same time creating value for those around me that uplift not only my people, but the community and society, and the contribution of Black farmers, and being a positive influence on young people.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome, man. That's amazing.
I'll call that one sentence.
Okay, all right. A long one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow. So now, you talked about this a little bit and you've hit on it a little bit in some of your answers, but, there's lots of misconceptions our society has about, Black men and, what it means to be a Black man. So if you had the ability to eradicate any of the misconceptions that maybe you've lived through or maybe you've heard about, which one would it be and why?
The perception of Black men are the results of perpetrated perceptions on Black men. So then I would then try to eradicate the practices, the policies and procedures that affect Black men, that make some act the way that they represent all of us with, if that makes sense. So I'd go to the source. In essence, I would go to the source. If I had a magic wand to eradicate it, I'd go to the source, because if we keep with history, the best way to keep a people down is you get rid of the strongest male in the organization, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I would try to do. But again, on the positive side, I think we're making great strides. I think, obviously, me being 58, having President Obama be the president 2 times, not just once, but twice, and I had the privilege of being there for his inauguration, that we've got to take the other thing, our own steps to find our own heroes within the Black community, like I did, with Obama was very motivating to me to say, you know what, we can all do it. And I need to be the Obama in my community, right? I need to be the good representation. I need to be, good representation in my community.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me, and I know this was not on the list of questions we sent you, but I'm pretty sure you can hit it pretty well here. And we're thinking more about the young men you coach, obviously coaching football. It's not only a rough sport and violent sport, right? But it's also a sport that, we start talking about Black boys, there's always that aspiration, if you will, is like, I'm focused on sports, I'm going to go to the NFL or whatever that looks like, right? But I think the way you're describing your life, it's a little bit different. And it's really about the hard work that you're putting in, is kind of what drives you. How do you communicate, if you would, what it means to be a male, Black male, to the kids that you coach every day? It's through a coaching
lens. You say that because I tell, because I'm Park Center relatively, for all intents and purposes, inner city, right? And I coached in Park Center for the last 10 years, in my 10th year, and I coached in Elk River, and I coached in Park Center. There's a difference between outer inner city and inner city. And so I tell the coaches all the time, it's like, even though we get frustrated, at the end of the day, remember, we're not coaching first, we're mentoring first and coaching second, using football as a vehicle to do that mentoring. And so I just had this speech with them 2 days ago with the kids, is that at the end of the day, we are trying to teach them accountability, responsibility, and respect, because you have to bring value you have to understand your value to yourself so you can bring value to your family, because a lot of them come from broken homes. A lot of them have homelessness. A lot of them have food security issues. A lot of the things that we treat a United Way, these players that I coach have these issues. And so we try to keep this on top of mind every time we talk to them, that football is just a speck in your life. But if you use it to its full ability, it can be a huge impact in your life, because that's why this is the best mentoring for me, because I can use football as a vehicle. But at the end of the day, these young men, they need this mentoring. And we try every day to show that they are valuable, so they can create value in their own communities.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
So what does success look like to you from your perspective? And thinking about all the things you do, whether it's, United Way, whether it's being a farmer, whether it's coaching and mentoring, like, what does success look like?
Well, I look at it in a couple of different categories. So from the family perspective, that, one, that my children, now that I have 3 grandchildren, I'm really seeing the value on, one, good health to be around for the grandchildren. Number 2, to be an example and to show value to them so that they aspire to be better than I am. Number 2, with coaching, mentoring, and that is to change a young person's life. There's no greater feeling in the world than when a kid comes back to you and say, Coach, because of you, I did A, B, or C. Because of you, I'm a regular guy, but I wasn't going to be before I came across your program. Number 3 is, when you speak of Black farmers, one of the things that I've done is I created a coalition in Iowa called the Iowa Farmers of Color. And we have our 2nd annual conference in November 16th in Urbandale, Iowa. And the purpose that I thought I was doing was I created an organization last year just to bring people together. But apparently, it was so successful that it is now part of my life now. And so what that is we brought together over 80 farmers of color into one area. and we networked, we found out who each other is, and then we made connections with state agencies for better access to programs, better access to finance, better access to land. So success there is that I turn this into a 501c3 or a co-op to some extent, and so that way we are attractive to organizations to come in and help farmers on a whole. So those would be, and then of course, my Dallas Cowboys win the Super Bowl, and my Park Center Pirates high school win the state championship.
Hey, that's awesome.
I'll give you everything with the Cowboys. That's phenomenal. So I think that you mentioned a few different things that you do, but just give the viewers or listeners and viewers, I guess, a little perspective on what you do to sort of give back to community. We know that you know from a coaching standpoint, but what else are you up to?
So I was an unofficial mentor. So like the kids around that come in contact with me, white kids, black kids, any type of kids, once they find out about farming, they look at me strange, like, wow, you're a farmer. So I use that opportunity to educate. So I'm always and let me tell you, it's adults too. So I'll be in at the bar, and they overhear me make a comment about farm, and they'll give me a look. So I don't take offense to it anymore. What I do is I take the opportunity to educate, because a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And I don't judge on why they don't know it, although they should, but I don't judge why they don't. So I take the opportunity to educate. So that's so hopefully I answered your question. I kind of went off script there, but yeah.
Yeah. So now I know we didn't really, I don't think you mentioned this in one of your earlier responses, but what types of farming do you do before I get to the next question? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So we grow corn and soybeans. In the early days, we grew everything. So first 5 generations that farm were totally self-sufficient. They ate everything they grew. They grew everything they ate. So they had cows, pigs, chickens, the whole works. They grew oats, sorghum, corn, soybeans, wheat. Today we grow corn and soybeans on 200 acres. And from all accounts, what I've been told is we're the oldest Black farmer in the state of Iowa.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. Yeah, I wanted to make sure to get that in there because, there's so many types of farmers, and I think it's good for people to know that, you specialize in that area, and it's amazing what you're doing. So, so now, kind of, could you tell us a little bit about if you had the ability to sit down with someone and share with them what you feel like the narrative about being a Black man in America and our culture today should be, then what would you say that narrative should be?
The narrative should be, we're just like anybody else. I mean, at the end of the day, I always try to remind people, like, we're not trying to get anything above and beyond. We're just trying to be normal men, just like the rest of normal men. Treat us like other normal men at the end of the day, because we are normal men. We have the same struggles, the same successes, the same fears, the same insecurities. So just take the time and address your own personal biases and get to know the people. And then that represents, and know that just like in the white men culture, majority of them are good men. Just like in the Black men, the majority are good men. And so treat everybody based on your experience with that particular person, and don't let it reflect the entire race. I mean, because Black men have been making strong contributions to agriculture. I mean, let's not forget, Black people built the American economy for free in the South. So when people say, wow, you don't see very many Black farmers, I would say, well, who do you think built the South for free? We did. Who do you think built the new processes and procedures to do farming out of necessity, so we didn't have to break our back? The cotton gin, the peanut, these types of things. So that's what I would do.
That's awesome.
Right. Absolutely. So how can people follow you? I mean, follow not only your farming, are you on social media, yes. LinkedIn, where can we find you at?
Remember, I'm 58 now, so let's see here. westernfamilyfarms.com. And my son's in marketing, so he does all that stuff. So Todd Western on Instagram, Todd Western on Facebook. Like I said, we all come from farming. So I would love to engage with you about anybody that's got farming in the background that has questions, because guess what? Granny that has the farm and she just holding it there, there's things that can be done that I can probably help them with, so that they're not paying heavy property taxes, so they're not being taken advantage of. So that's what the Iowa Farmers of Color is all about.
Awesome.
That's
Very
amazing. So before we let you go, I know you said the Iowa Farmers of Color, but if someone is in Minnesota or the Dakota, can they still plug in with you? Or
Absolutely. So our goal is to support all surrounding states of Iowa.
Okay.
So after this year, we'll probably go to a different state. But last year we had representation from every state around Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, Illinois. We had people from down south, Indiana, Ohio. So even though it's called Iowa Farmers of Color, really what I'm trying to do is to consolidate all the farmers up north and bring us together in a big network.
Yeah. Oh man, amazing. Well, Todd, I mean, this has been amazing, man. I really I enjoy having these conversations, because I mean, Carl and I were saying we get to meet so many cool guys that, you know, sometimes it's easy to take for granted, especially when you see people all the time and you get to know them in one element, but you're doing some amazing things, and we really truly appreciate you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you guys. Like I said, I love getting the story out there, because, you know, like I said, I came up in an era where you were quiet about this kind of thing, and so it is valuable for not only blacks but whites and the community at large to know that you know, black men are out here doing some great things, contributing, being value, and that we can all work together.
Awesome, man. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.